Sometimes the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And here's your host, Ben Adelberg.
And welcome to the Back of the Range Golf Podcast. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. This is episode 149. Another massively busy week here at the Back of the Range. Lots going on behind the scenes. All good things, by the way. I can't get into it. Believe me, I want to, but sometimes you just got to not jinx things. Let's just say lots of great guests coming up. Lots of great information for the future of this podcast coming up. So I will let you all know as quickly as possible. But we're going to move on to this week's episode. Before I do that, congratulations to the University of Florida's men's golf coach, J.C. Deacon, who picked up his second Florida Open championship last weekend. Absolutely incredible. You know, when I stopped in Gainesville on the way back from my trip to South Carolina, I stopped by the golf course, met Coach Deacon, and we were talking about the Florida Open, and he said, I'm just trying to get my game ready, and, it's getting there. And then the very next weekend, he wins. It's just hard to explain, Mojo, how you could find something that clicks, Mojo, and then put it to the test in competition, Mojo, against the best pros and amateurs in the state of Florida. Mojo. Weird. Anyway, well, congrats to Coach, and thank you to him for giving me all of that incredible Gators gear when I was in Gainesville. I've been giving it out to listeners the entire week, doing it on Instagram. If you're listening to this episode on Thursday, July 23rd, you still have today, you still have tomorrow. I'm still giving away stuff. There's hats, there's shirts, probably a couple head covers. There's stuff in there. So go to the Instagram page. It's the Back of the Range Podcast. That information, where you can find the podcast on Facebook and Twitter, all that can be found on the website, thebackoftherange.com. Don't forget, every episode is available there as well. And if you have time to leave a review in Apple Podcasts, I appreciate that. So, on to this week's episode. Now, you'd think I'd have another Gator on this week, but no. I am keeping it in the SEC, however. So, my guest on this episode is Davis Thompson, the number 4 ranked amateur in the world from the University of Georgia. Had a great conversation with Davis. We hit on several topics, including his start in the game and what ultimately led him to Georgia. Davis was the runner-up to Akshay Bhatia in the 2019 Jones Cup Invitational. And when Akshay turned professional and didn't use his winner's exemption into the PGA Tour's RSM Classic, it went to Davis. Now, what do you think he did with that exemption? Was he a tourist? Was he just happy to be there? Remember, the RSM is basically played right in his backyard in Sea Island, Georgia. No, he went ahead and made the cut and picked up a top 25 finish in his first PGA Tour event. And that should serve him well, since, for good measure, he went ahead and won the 2020 Jones Cup Invitational this year by 9 shots, and he'll return and play in his third PGA Tour event this fall. He picked up first-team All-America honors this year. He was a Haskins Award and Nicklaus Award finalist. I mean, basically, he's right in that group with Sahith Theegala, John Augenstein. Those 3 guys were really at the top of the list the entire year. This is a young player you will be seeing on TV playing golf for many years to come. Let's jump into this episode right away. Davis, welcome to the Back of the Range Golf Podcast. How are you?
Doing good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I got to get it out of the way first. We're talking on July 16th. We're letting listeners know when we record because everything changes day to day in the current scope of things. And we were just talking about how you're kind of keeping your game sharp over at, it sounds like a rough place, Sea Island, Georgia. I think there's a few good games you could find. What is a typical you're trying to keep your game sharp. You have tournaments coming up. You got the Western, you got the Son of Hannah, and then obviously the USAM out at Bandon. What are you doing to keep your game sharp right now as far as just casual games, or do they get a little bit more serious?
A little bit of both. When quarantine all started, I was playing games with some of the tour guys that were down here, which was awesome. That really helped me kind of keep that competitive edge and play under pressure a little bit. And then, I've had good number of casual rounds with some of my friends down here, which has been nice as well. And just going out and playing now with my dad also has been nice. And but yeah, I mean, leading up to these few tournaments, I've had a good mix of both, which has been awesome.
You mentioned your dad. You know we're going to have to talk a little bit about him as well. In fact, the more I research you, the more I find information about him. So I hope you're going to be okay with sharing the limelight with another a Georgia Bulldog with the same last name. So I got to ask you about your start in the game. You know, you played junior golf. Your father is your high school golf coach. No matter how good any relationship is between a father and son, I'm sure things can kind of get tested a little bit when it's player coach and also father son. So, you know, growing up in Auburn, Alabama, playing junior golf and having dad as your high school coach, tell me what that's like.
Yeah.
I've heard them all. I've heard a lot of the start in the game stories doing this, but I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, it was definitely unique. You know, driving to the tournaments, I was treating him as my dad. But, you know, when I stepped on the golf course, he was my coach, or my high school golf coach. And, you know, I just tried to treat it like that. And, you know, obviously after the round, treat him like my dad. But during the round, it was all business, and we were focused on winning tournaments. And, you know, obviously growing up in Auburn, there's some highs and some lows being a Georgia fan. But
Sure.
I just remember the Hail Mary game when Auburn beat Georgia. That was a rough go for me, but you know, we were able to beat them the next couple of years, which is nice to have some bragging rights on my friends. But yeah, I mean, it was an awesome place to grow up in, and I'm just thankful for the many relationships that I've made there. And my dad has definitely, obviously, been a part of that, and he was just an awesome coach to play for.
Now, do you think maybe your approach to the game is the same as his, or a little bit different? I'm guessing the difference in distance and maybe the way the game is played these days. Not just talking about when you two go play now, but I'm thinking, you know, your dad was, you know, won 2 titles when he played at Georgia. He was the team captain twice, led them to a SEC championship along with good old Tommy Tolles and Paul Claxton. I mean, I'm in my mid 40s, so those names obviously ring a bell. So, but those were the times where, you know, you're hitting drivers, you know, 260, 270, and it's all about placement and course strategy. And well, now his kid just walks up and just tees it high and lets it fly, and it goes 320 in the air. So, how do you balance that different outlook on the game, so to speak?
There's been some times where there's been some times where he's looked at me and just, you know, whether he's caddying for me or just watching me play, he'll ask, you know, hey, what'd you hit on that par 3? Did you get like 6 or 7 there? And I said, no, that was a smooth 8. And he'll just, you know, kind of shake his head and walk away. But, you know, there's definitely been a change over the years. And, I mean, just look what Bryson's doing right now. It's crazy, and in a good way. And I guess we'll find out what the USGA does, or if they do anything to maybe lengthen the courses or change the golf ball. I don't know what they're going to do, but
well, it's about 7:00 at night when we're recording. I think he's on his 6th protein shake by now.
yeah,
I think.
yeah.
I was going to ask you.
Right.
I was going to ask you about distance, and since you brought it up, let me ask you about that. I mean, we're seeing everything with what he's doing, and I know people are talking about the current crop of PGA Tour players and what they're going to do to compete with him. But you're part of that next wave of talent that's going to be, trying to make it on the PGA Tour the next, whatever, 1, 2, 3 years, whatever you want to call it. Is this a conversation that you're having with your fellow, collegiate players, whether it's the guys on the Georgia team or guys you see at invitationals? I mean, you look at it and you watch it and you see the clips of him, carrying it 360. But do you personally feel a obligation now of, maybe not putting on 40 pounds of weight, but is it a conversation right now between a lot of your peers?
Oh, it's definitely the hot topic conversation. It seems like every time I'm turning on Golf Channel, they're talking about how far he's hitting it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous how far he's hitting. And, I'll be interested to see if he can maintain it. I'll be interested to see, if we're 5 years down the road, if he's still hitting it that far. And if he is, kudos to him. That's awesome. But it's definitely a topic of conversation. And personally, I don't feel the urge to put on 40 pounds. But that's just me.
Yeah, I
But
mean, yeah, there's a certain point. I'm kind of in the same camp. I mean, I'm not trying to build my body up to compete on, mid amateur golf tournaments, but I'm also looking at it like at some point you still have to wedge it close. You still have to make the putts. And if you're hitting
I agree with that.
yeah, and if you're hitting at 310 or 330, I don't know. We'll have to see. Of course, if God forbid he pulls a hammy or a disc blows out, then well, that'll be the next big story. So, talk to me a little bit about you talked about your dad being your high school golf coach, but the family business. Your dad starts the Southeast Junior Golf Tour in '94, so the family business is running junior golf tournaments. Now we're in a whole different direction of, I mean, that's a first that I've ever heard of. So, I mean, I'm guessing since it's the family business, there had to be a time where you're getting a grunt job running a tournament that you probably didn't want to have. But what's it like not only playing in those tournaments, but also, I guess you're helping out run them at some point.
Yeah, I'm actually interning for them this summer, so I've been working a few tournaments, which has been nice. But you
want to play.
Growing up playing, growing up playing in those tournaments, it was unique because I would definitely just ride out to the golf course with my dad, and he would just kind of drop me off and go do his work, and I would either practice or go play and or play my practice round. But it didn't matter if I had the last tee time or the first tee time. I was showing up when they showed up.
Oh.
So I mean, which was usually 5:30, 6 in the morning. So it was unique. I was very thankful that my dad ran that junior tour to kind of help me grow in the game and learn about it. And it was cool as well because my dad usually didn't really get to watch me play in those tournaments. I mean, he would watch me play probably 4 or 5 holes each tournament just because he was working and driving around and figuring out stuff that he's got to handle, and which has been cool now because he has gotten more opportunities to watch me play in college, which has been awesome. And but yeah, to answer your question, I have been working those tournaments.
I'm just picturing you getting there at 6 a.m. and hopefully Dad does you a solid and he puts you in the first group out. But if you're but if you're leading on the final round, and I'm guessing there's a whole I guess that probably helps you in the long run because you probably have the ability to stay pretty patient and even keel where some people don't want to show up 3 hours before their tee time. You've probably been doing that for years.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, if I played good, it was hey, good round, but I had to wait a couple hours the next morning. If I played bad, it was I was down in the dumps, but hey, I had an earlier tee time, so I could just get out and go play. But no, it was all awesome.
That's great. Well, as I said, your dad your dad played collegiately in Georgia, had a great career there. And I'm sure, once, being a Georgia fan, I'm sure as your game is taking shape and collegiate programs are showing interest, Georgia is going to be pretty high on the list. How did you and your family approach the recruiting process? I have a lot of parents that listen, a lot of junior and collegiate players that listen to this podcast. And I always try and hit upon that subject as much as possible, just because it's just going to help the next wave of young kids trying to navigate the waters of going from high school to college golf. And, you got your dad's dad played there, and I know you're a fan there. So how did you go about that process?
My dad's advice to me was to just go at it with a blank slate. Like, you got to take out your fan affection towards Georgia, which I feel like I did a good job of. And, he just told me, like, look, this is your decision. It's not my decision. I would love for you to go to Georgia, but if it's not the place for you, then it's not the place for you. But I visited a couple schools, and I don't know. I just felt really at home in Athens. I thought that was the best opportunity for me. I felt like that was the best opportunity for me to play early, which really benefited me now down the road. And it just kind of fell into place, and I committed to Georgia.
Nice. Coaching styles, your dad in high school and Coach Hack at Georgia. Can you pinpoint any differences there?
Yeah, there are a few differences. My dad wasn't very hands on, but he was always, watching us practice, and he was just very involved. Like with our qualifying rounds, he would kind of walk with us a little bit in qualifying, and he would just kind of always be around us, which was awesome. And Coach Hack's a little more hands off. If you ask Coach Hack to watch you at a few, he will, but he's usually handling other business in his office, and he just kind of lets us do our own thing on the practice field, which I love, and that's kind of why I really love Georgia, and I love his coaching style. And in qualifying, he kind of keeps his distance and kind of just lets us figure it out for ourselves, which is kind of what you have to do in the next step of professional golf. So
Yeah.
He's kind of teaching us that lesson early.
Well, there's a lot of guys that are on the PGA Tour that called Athens home, and I'm sure you've had a chance to bump into those guys, whether it's when they're back in Athens or when you're playing PGA Tour events. You've played in a couple, and you got another one coming up. You're coming across with this great calm demeanor. I mean, you're these days, you're first team All-American and Haskins and Nicklaus Award finalist. But there was a time when you were a freshman at Georgia coming out of Lee Scott Academy with an enrollment of 750 kids. And that's including kindergartners, because you had a graduating class of maybe like 50. What can you even put into words the culture shock of going from Lee Scott Academy to Athens, where their undergrad enrollment is 30,000?
I mean, Lee Scott, I knew every family. I knew every
right
sibling. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, it was just very small, tight knit, and which I loved. But I just remember getting to campus and thinking, what am I going to do? I just called my dad. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And he just said, Davis, you're going to be fine. Just give it a couple weeks. And I did. And it took me a while to get adjusted to, the class schedule and the qualifying schedule. And I honestly struggled a good bit my freshman year, and had some good tournaments, but I also had a lot of poor tournaments, which, it's very rare. It takes a special player to go straight from high school to college and just, play really well. And for me, I just needed some time to get adjusted and get used to it. But yeah, it was just very overwhelming at the start, and I just kept praying and kept, I knew that Athens was the place for me, so I wasn't necessarily worried. It was just very overwhelming.
Well, the impressive thing, though, that you did do is whether or not you're not 100% pleased with, maybe how you played in every single tournament, though. But man, you're on a handful of academic honor rolls, and that's important down the line, because you don't have the grades, you can't play. So that's definitely a good thing to take care of. What you have this great junior season, and before I talk a little bit about how COVID closed down your junior year, tell me a little bit about the importance of being pushed by your teammates. I've spoken to Trent Phillips, another first-team All-American. Spencer Ralston won the Players in 2019. You win the Jones Cup. You runner-up in 2019 at that, but he won it this past year, or past January. You probably don't know exactly how everything's going to shape out or shake out when you get on the team with these guys, but it seems like the entire team is firing. So, just tell me about the importance of just being pushed by your teammates.
I am very competitive. So, if we're qualifying, I'm trying to beat you. And if we're chipping, if we're having a chipping contest, I'm trying to beat you. If we're putting, I'm trying to beat you. So, we're just very competitive. And, I'm obviously like pulling for our guys.
Sure.
When we're in tournaments, but, when we're back home, I'm competing. I'm trying to beat you, and I'm trying to push you, and hopefully you're trying to push me to be the best player I can be. And so that's what you need to make it deep in NCAAs and SECs, and you kind of have to nudge your teammates along and try to get them out of their comfort zone a little bit. And yeah, I mean, it's very important for us to be very competitive and to push each other.
I know you were not in the playoff I know you're sure you wanted to be representing your team in this playoff against Quade Cummins in Hawaii when Trent won, and I think it was 7 or 8 playoff holes at the Kanapali. But as far as being around your teammates, I'm guessing watching one of your teammates for 7 holes in Hawaii isn't a bad way to spend a college day.
No, it was. I mean,
were you guys just getting a little pissed at him? Like, dude, just finish Quade off. Let's go. We got to catch a flight.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of one of those things where we're like, dang, we're tired of being out here, but at the same time, we were like, dang, we're also in Hawaii. Like, let's drag this out. But no, it was awesome to see Trent get his first win, and Quade, I think he shot maybe like a 62, 61 the last round. So I mean, he showed a lot of mental toughness that day to beat him, and because obviously Quade was playing awesome, and both of them were, but it was just cool to see him get his first win.
You were supposed to be playing the SEC Men's Golf Championship was supposed to be, of course, because the news just can't get any worse for you. It's supposed to be at Sea Island in St. Simons, right there at your home course, and of course that gets canceled. I'm guessing you had that date just circled on your calendar all season. I think I've gone into a dark place. I'm really sorry. I'll get us out of here quickly, but I've spoken to other collegiate players and coaches about what it did to them when they heard the news that everything was going to get canceled. Where were you and your teammates when you found out that college golf was done for the year?
Yeah, I was at home. I think I was watching the players, and then I just got a notification on my phone that they canceled March Madness. And
that was it.
Or it was something like, they're not doing any fans at the SEC basketball tournament. So I was like, all right. And then all of a sudden, March Madness is canceled, NBA is canceled, and it was just a snowball. And I didn't really believe it at first. I thought, maybe, a couple weeks would go by, a single drop, but little did I know that we'd still be talking about it. But it was rough. I've definitely had some good days and some bad days, because obviously I was playing well and I was excited about postseason and trying to win SECs and a national championship, but everything happens for a reason. So
a lot of fans of collegiate golf are thinking that, hey, you're just missing out on playing golf tournaments and there's going to be plenty more and you're going to, play in many more down the line. But you're also missing out on being on campus, being in Athens and having a normal college experience. What's been like the biggest thing you've missed about just being a regular college kid at a school like Georgia? Not even golf related.
I think just hanging out with my teammates. I've seen probably 3 or 4 of my teammates since all this started. I just miss hanging out with them, in our locker room and at our house, and just cutting up and having a good time. But yeah, it's just been a huge adjustment. It just shows you that you can't take anything for granted. And
yeah, you had a lot of great memories at Sea Island. You had a top 25 finish at the RSM in 2019, and obviously, gosh, it feels like you kind of own that place. You win the Jones Cup. You're runner-up to Akshay in 19, then you win it in 2020 with, I think you won it by 8 or 9, just pretty much decimated everyone in the final round. When you play a PGA Tour event, I know you played in Puerto Rico as well, but when you get an exemption to play in a PGA Tour event, like, what's your approach as far as setting goals? You want to enjoy it. You're an amateur. It's not your job, but you also don't want to be a tourist and just be like, oh, wow, look at all the bright lights. And then, you leave and that's it. But like, how did you set your expectations for that?
I just tried to prepare as best I could. It kind of set up perfect for me because, it was my home course. I knew the shots that I had to hit. I knew, the certain winds that I would face. It kind of set up perfect for me being my first one. I wouldn't say I was comfortable because I was very nervous. I was, first PGA Tour event, there was obviously some nerves on the first tee. And
sure.
But, I was just able to play conservative, the probably 3 or 4 holes of the tournament just to kind of get into a groove. And then, from there on, I think I was pretty fine. I was very nervous on my 36th hole because I had to make par to make the cut.
Okay,
And I was kind of nerve wracking, but I was able to do that and then just play well on the weekend. And it just set up well for me, and I was comfortable majority of the time. And as far as expectations, I told myself a good goal for me would be a top 10. Because I was feeling very confident. I just had a great fall, and I was playing well leading up to that event, and that was a good goal for me. But I'll take a top 25 for my first one.
Yeah. Now, did you have to ride to the golf course with the tournament director, or how did the tournament director hook you up with maybe a nice tee time or something?
No, he had no say in that, unfortunately. But I did not have to ride with him. I mean,
okay.
He was out at the course probably 5:30 almost every day, which was nice for me to have my own car, so I could stroll out there whenever I wanted.
Oh, you got a courtesy car, didn't you?
I did.
There
you go. It was nice.
There you go. So I'm looking. I want to ask before we talk about what's coming up for you. You have this great 3 tournament run you're about to get started on: Sunny Hannah and Western, and then obviously USAM at Bandon. A little over 4 months ago, I guess, was your last collegiate event, the Southern Highlands, and you finished solo 6th. And then your return, I guess, to competitive tournament golf was at the North South at Pinehurst, and you had a solid finish there, reached the round of 16. On paper, just looks like you picked up right where you left off, but we kind of hit on this earlier about what you've done to stay sharp and keep your game in good working order. Any surprises just not being in tournament mode for 4 months, or did it just like it looks like on paper? Did you just pick up right where you left off?
I kind of picked up right where I left off. I was pretty nervous at the start, just to kind of get back into it. And I hadn't played a competitive round in a long time, and there were definitely some course management errors that I had throughout the week, just having some competitive rust. But it kind of felt like I kind of left off, or I kind of picked up right where I left off, which was encouraging. And I'm just looking forward to playing well these next 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I've seen it's been interesting to see the PGA Tour and a lot of players especially on the Corn Ferry. They're just kind of coming right out of the gate, just playing really well. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised at a lot of that stuff, but I guess everyone's kind of staying sharp. You have this unique situation this year. You're the number 4th ranked amateur in the world. And with the U.S. Amateur, I know you've been through U.S. Amateur qualifiers in the past, and this year you don't have to worry about that. You are one of the many players. The entire field is based on exemptions, and you qualify in several different categories. But you're going to be there at Bandon Dunes. You would have had a nice little warm up for links golf if you would have been at Lahinch in Ireland with the Palmer Cup, but that's been postponed and moved to Orlando. I'm guessing this is your first U.S. Amateur, isn't it?
It is. To be honest, I just haven't played well in the qualifiers in years past, which, I mean, some guys are really good at it. I know my teammate Spencer, seems like every year he qualifies. He makes it. But, I just haven't played well in those, and which is, unfortunate, but I'm excited to play in my first one. I had a really cool place at Bandon Dunes. I've heard a lot of great things, and I'm excited to go out there and play some links golf.
Yeah, it should be pretty entertaining. I've not been out there. It's going to also be interesting to see how every player doesn't really, you're going to get the cream of the crop. You're not going to have someone that's really way off someone's radar that sneaks in. I mean, everyone there is at the very least probably in the top 200 to 300 in the world. So it's going to be pretty exciting to be a very unique U.S. Amateur.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's obviously like probably the best field of the year, and strictly based off rankings, it's pretty strong, and I'm excited to get out there.
There's so you have Palmer Cup in December, and that's at Bay Hill, and there's this other cup thing that's going to happen next May. I believe it's the Walker Cup in down here by me at Seminole. You know, you're in school for your senior season. There's a lot of guys that are coming back for another senior year. I mean, you want to talk about a competitive field U.S. Amateur. The competition to make the Walker Cup team is going to be incredible as well, because you have guys that, you know, whether it's a John Augenstein or, you know, a Cooper Dawsey, you know, names that may have turned pro any other time, as, you know, except for this occurrence, they're going to be there. How much is Walker Cup on your radar?
It's very much on my,
okay.
It's very much on my radar.
I ask a dumb question every once in a while, Davis. I mean, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. That's a huge goal of mine, and I'm just going to work my tail off to try to make that team and try to represent the United States. And hopefully I'll be seeing you down there at Seminole.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's I have to ask you a little bit about Sea Island. I kind of skipped over that. You got a lot of great players there. If you and your dad take on DL3 and Drew Love, tell me about that match. Are there strokes being given? You guys playing straight up, or has that match taken place? That's a better question. Has that match taken place?
It has before.
Okay.
It was a couple years ago. I don't really remember the outcome, but we'd be playing straight up for sure. My dad probably wants strokes, but we're not going to give him any strokes. He's good enough to play straight up.
I was going to ask you, I know you've played rounds with Keith Mitchell, and I know you played with some of the other guys there. Are there maybe games that kind of regular games around there that really kind of benefit you, guys that you've played with that you really learn a lot from? I mean, obviously you're all hitting at probably similar distances, but I mean, there's got to be guys that you're probably gravitating more towards.
I've played with Patton, Kazire, and
yep.
Harris English a few times. I've learned a lot from them. They've been very helpful to me, but also when I'm in Athens, I play and practice a bit with Brendan Ty, which has been awesome because he's had a great year, and he's seen the ups and downs of golf, and he's really helped me out. You know, all those guys are great guys, and they've, you know, they're pulling for me and I'm pulling for them, which is awesome. And I'm just thankful that, you know, I have those resources available to kind of help me get prepared for the next step, which would be professional golf.
He's got to be a pretty good guy to talk to, because it's easy to play rounds with guys that seemingly have just moved up the ladder and are successful right out of the gate. But to learn from a guy like that really has had a tough time and then regained it in such a incredible fashion, I'm guessing you're learning a lot about what it's going to look like as a professional, where it's not all courtesy cars and you know, jets and, you know, making cuts left and right and cashing checks. So that's got to be good.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you know, Davis, great to talk to you. It sounds like you just have a lot of great things going for you. I know it's going to be a whirlwind summer in the next few weeks leading up to the USAM, and then hopefully things will get started again down at Athens. You guys can make that run. I know you have a really strong squad coming back. And yeah, good luck the rest of the summer, and we'll catch up again soon. I appreciate you stopping by the back of the range.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for having me.
And there you have it. Special thanks to Davis Thompson for joining me on this episode of The Back of the Range. Don't forget, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Every single episode is available at thebackoftherange.com. Make sure you're subscribed in Apple Podcasts. You know we're on Spotify. There is a lot of news coming up in the next 2 weeks. I can't mention it yet, but stay tuned to The Back of the Range.